Chapter 1. The arrival, it was the first time I had seen David like this. He was beaming, practically glowing as he walked through the door with Sarah by his side. I had prepared myself for this day, his wedding day, but nothing could have prepared me for the overwhelming flood of emotions that rushed over me. His smile, his eyes. Everything about him seemed brighter, more alive than I'd ever seen. And yet, as I stood there, ready to welcome his new wife into our home, something else stirred within me. It was a feeling I couldn't quite name, something foreign, uncomfortable. A feeling of losing control, of watching as someone else took my place in my son's life. Sarah was beautiful. There was no denying that. She was tall, with soft blonde hair that framed her face perfectly, and a smile that could light up any room. The kind of smile that would immediately make anyone like her, and I could tell she was trying her hardest to do just that. She extended her hand to me, and I shook it, a polite smile on my face. But in that handshake, something in me recoiled. She was too perfect, too eager. I had spent my entire life making David my world, and now, here she was, taking a place I wasn't ready to give up. David's voice broke through my thoughts. "Mum, this is Sarah. Sarah, this is my mum. Nice to meet you, Mrs." "Pierce," Sarah said, her voice sweet and warm, as she stepped forward to hug me. I tried not to stiffen, but I could feel my body tense. The hug felt too intimate, too personal. It wasn't just a greeting. It was an attempt to connect, to establish something I wasn't ready to acknowledge. We all sat down to dinner, and as I watched them interact, the sense of unease only grew. Sarah seemed to have an innate way of drawing David's attention, keeping him focused on her. She laughed a little too loudly at his jokes, touched his arm a little too often, and each time I looked at them, I felt further and further removed from the situation, from the life I had once shared with my son. David looked at me with a smile that seemed a little too forced, as if he were trying to reassure me. But in that moment, I didn't need reassurance. I needed to understand where I fit into this new life of his. The truth hit me like a heavy stone. He was no longer the little boy I had raised. He was her husband now, and I was. Well, I was still his mother, but in this new reality, that didn't seem to matter as much. It wasn't just jealousy, not at first. It was something much deeper, something darker. It was the dawning realization that, despite all the years I had spent raising him, despite everything I had done for him, I wasn't his world anymore. Sarah was, and I didn't know if I could accept that. Chapter 2. The seed of doubt days passed, and I watched as Sarah settled into our lives. At first I kept my distance, hoping time would ease the tension, that the strange feeling inside me would fade. But it didn't. It only grew. It started, with small things, tiny moments that I might have overlooked if I hadn't been paying so much attention. The way Sarah would brush past me in the hallway, her presence always just a little too close. The way she would casually refer to things as ours, even when it was clear she was talking about things that were, until recently, solely David's and mine. I tried to dismiss it as my own insecurities. After all, she was David's wife now. I wasn't supposed to be the one he turned to anymore. I understood that. But every time Sarah called the shots, whether it was picking where to go for dinner, or deciding which family event to prioritize, I could feel the ground shifting beneath my feet. My role in David's life was being rewritten, and I didn't know how to find my place in this new version of our family. David seemed so happy, more than I had ever seen him, actually. It was as if he had been freed from the invisible chains that had bound him to me, and now he was flourishing under Sarah's influence. They were making plans, talking about moving to a new city, starting their life together. Everything was perfect, except for one thing. Me. One evening, we were all sitting in the living room watching a movie when David mentioned something offhandedly about how they were thinking about moving in together, just the two of them. My heart clenched at the words. It wasn't just the thought of them moving out, it was the way he said it, so casually, as though I was no longer the most important person in his life. "You and Sarah?" I asked, my voice sounding more accusatory than I had intended. David looked at me with a confused expression, his brow furrowed. "Yeah, we've been talking about it. You know, we think it's time. We're ready to take the next step." I nodded, though I could feel the sting of rejection burning in my chest. It wasn't that I didn't want him to be happy. I did. But this was something I hadn't prepared for. This was the moment when I realized he was no longer my little boy. He was a man, making decisions without me. And it hurt. I watched them both, sitting so close together, whispering about their future, and suddenly I felt like an outsider in my own home. I had spent my entire life building a relationship with David, and now Sarah had come along and torn it all apart. It wasn't that I hated her, it wasn't even that I didn't like her, but it was as though she was a force of nature, powerful, inevitable, and I was just left to watch it all unfold. Chapter 3. The Unseen War. The weeks that followed were a blur. David was more distant than ever, and Sarah seemed to be everywhere. At first I tried to remain cordial, tried to act like everything was fine, but it wasn't. I could feel the tension in the air. Every time I spoke to David, I felt like he was slipping further away from me, like he was becoming someone else's son. Sarah was always there, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. She had taken over every aspect of their life together, and in doing so, she had taken over my place. She had become the centre of his world, and I was just a shadow in the background. One evening I overheard them talking in the other room. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but I couldn't help it. I heard Sarah's voice, soft and smooth as always, saying something that made my blood run cold. "David, you know your mum means well, but she just doesn't get it. She's still trying to control everything. You need to let her go. We're building our own life now." It wasn't the words themselves that hurt, but the way she said them, the calm certainty in her voice. It was as though she believed she had every right to push me out of David's life. And the worst part? David didn't argue. He didn't defend me. He just listened quietly, and I knew in that moment that Sarah was winning. I felt the sting of betrayal like a knife in my chest. This wasn't just about my son moving out. This was about losing him to her, and I couldn't stand it. Chapter 4. The Reckoning. By the time I finally confronted David, the tension had reached its breaking point. I couldn't stay silent anymore. I couldn't pretend that everything was fine. "David," I said one evening, my voice trembling, "we need to talk." He looked at me, his expression unreadable, but I could see the exhaustion in his eyes. "Mum, I know things have been tense, but we're just trying to figure things out. Sarah and we're building something together." "No," I interrupted, my voice rising. "You're building something together, but you're leaving me behind. You're letting her take over, David. You don't even realize it, but she's pushing me out of your life. and I can't sit back and watch it happen." David's face darkened, and he opened his mouth to speak, but I cut him off. "You're my son, David, and I won't let her replace me. I won't let her take you from me. You've always been my world, and now it feels like you've forgotten about me." The words hung in the air, thick with anger and pain. David looked at me for a long moment, his face a mixture of guilt and frustration. But then, to my surprise, he sighed. "I don't want to hurt you, Mum, but Sarah and I are trying to build something together, and I need to do this with her." It felt like a punch in the gut. My son, the one I had raised, the one I had always been there for, he was choosing her over me. It had been days since David and I last spoke without a distance between us. The silence was deafening, and yet every word felt like it would either shatter the fragile peace we were clinging to or tear us apart completely. I had tried so many times to reach out, to speak to him as a mother would speak to her son. But each time I could feel the barrier between us growing higher, more impenetrable. And in the silence, Sarah's presence loomed, a constant reminder that my son, my only son, was slipping away. I couldn't sleep. The weight of everything that had happened pressed down on me. My mind raced at night, unable to escape the images of David and Sarah together, the way they shared quiet moments, whispered secrets, and made decisions as though I didn't even exist. I had always been the most important woman in David's life, and now here was Sarah, so effortlessly replacing me, taking what was mine. I had raised him, nurtured him, been the one constant in his life. And yet it felt as though I was watching him slip through my fingers, with Sarah standing there, taking my place. I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand her. It wasn't just that she was his wife. It wasn't that I didn't approve of her. It was the way she had become the centre of his world, the way she had wormed her way into our family, and without even trying, had become the thing I feared most. A threat. I remember the day I heard them talking, a conversation I wasn't meant to overhear, but one I couldn't avoid. I was sitting in the kitchen, pretending to clean, when their voices reached me from the living room. David's laugh rang out, followed by Sarah's soft, soothing tone, one I had come to dread. "David, we can't keep living like this," Sarah said, her voice dripping with sweetness, but underneath there was something cold, something calculated. "She's always hovering. I mean, it's like she's trying to control everything. It's exhausting." I froze, my heart hammering in my chest. Her words felt like daggers to my soul. I wanted to scream, to confront her right then and there, but I couldn't. I was frozen in place, listening to my own son, the son I had given everything to, agreeing with her. "I know." "Sarah," David replied, his voice tired, his words heavy with the weight of the truth I had been avoiding. "I've tried talking to her, but it's like she doesn't understand. She's always been there, and now it's hard to break the habit." "But you're right. It's time for us to take the next step. I can't keep putting off my life for her." There it was. The final blow. The words I had feared hearing but never thought I would. My son had chosen her. It wasn't just about their new life together. It was about me being left behind. And in that moment, I realized how deeply I had underestimated Sarah. She wasn't just some woman who had come into David's life. She was a force that had slowly, quietly taken over everything. I stood there, my body trembling, my hands gripping the edge of the counter. I had heard enough. My mind was racing, my heart pounding in my chest. How could David say that? How could he so easily dismiss me, his own mother, the one who had raised him, the one who had been there for him through everything. I was the one who had been there for him when no one else was. I was the one who had helped him through his hardest times. And now I was nothing. I was just an afterthought, a relic of a past that David was trying to leave behind. I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to confront him. I needed to show him what I had heard, to make him understand that I was not the problem. Sarah was. She was the one who was driving a wedge between us, the one who was making David question everything he had ever known. That night, as we sat down to dinner, the tension was palpable. David and Sarah exchanged glances, but it wasn't the same. It wasn't the look of two people in love, but the look of two people who were waiting for something. Waiting for me to say something, waiting for the inevitable confrontation to happen. I could feel it in the air, thick and heavy. The silence was deafening, and yet all I could hear was the sound of my own heartbeat. I cleared my throat, my voice shaky as I looked directly at David. David, we need to talk. He looked at me, his expression unreadable. Mum, what's wrong? You and Sarah, I began, my voice trembling with emotion. You think I don't notice. You think I don't hear what's being said behind my back. But I do. I heard what you said to her today, and I heard what she said to you. David's face shifted, his eyes filled with surprise, then guilt. He opened his mouth to speak, but I cut him off. Don't, I said, my voice growing stronger with each word. Don't try to explain it away. You can't hide the truth from me. You've made it clear. Sarah is your priority now. I'm nothing but a shadow in your life, something that you've outgrown. I could see the pain in his eyes. It was the same pain I felt, but it wasn't enough. I wasn't asking for an apology. I wasn't asking for him to change his life for me. I just needed him to understand. I needed him to see what was happening, to see that I was being pushed aside, that everything I had done for him was being erased. I'm sorry, Mum, David said, his voice barely above a whisper. But I have to do this. Sarah and I, we're building our life together. It's not that I don't love you, I do. But I can't keep living in the past. I can't keep putting her second. The words cut through me like a knife. I was no longer his first priority. I wasn't even his second. Sarah had taken my place, and I was left with nothing but the remains of a relationship that was quickly fading away. The next few days were a blur. I tried to pretend that everything was fine, but I could feel the distance growing between us. Every time I saw David, I could see the change in him. He wasn't the same person anymore. He wasn't the son I had raised, the boy who had once needed me for everything. He was a man now, and he didn't need me. But the hardest part was seeing Sarah. She was everywhere, in every corner of our house, in every conversation. She had become a permanent fixture in my life, and I hated it. I hated how easily she had infiltrated our family, how effortlessly she had become the woman David turned to for everything. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to do something. I couldn't sit back and watch my son be taken away from me. One evening, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I couldn't let Sarah continue to control everything. I needed to confront her directly. I had spent far too long trying to be polite, trying to let her into our family, and it had only made things worse. I waited for David to leave the house, and then I went to find Sarah. She was sitting in the living room, scrolling through her phone when I entered. She looked up, startled, but then quickly masked her surprise with a fake smile. "What's going on, Mrs. Pierce?" she asked sweetly. "Enough with the pleasantries, Sarah," I said, my voice sharp. "We need to talk." Her eyes flickered with something, fear maybe, or guilt, but she didn't say anything. She just looked at me, waiting. "I've tried, Sarah, I've tried to accept you. I've tried to let you into my life, into David's life, but I can't stand by and watch you take everything from me. You've taken my son from me, and I won't stand for it any longer." Her smile faltered. "Mrs. Pierce, I'm not trying to replace you. I love David, and I'm trying to build a life with him. I'm not trying to take you away from him. I just want us to be a family." "A family?" I spat. "You already have him." "But I'm not going anywhere, Sarah. I've been his mother long before you came into the picture, and I won't let you erase me." For the first time, I saw Sarah's mask crack. She was quiet for a long moment, her eyes narrowing as she stood up, facing me. "I never meant to hurt you, but I'm not backing down. I love David, and I'm here to stay." I felt the anger boil inside me. "We'll see about that," I whispered. The house had never felt so empty, so quiet. I had been living in the same space as David and Sarah for months, but now each creak of the floorboards, each distant sound from the other room, reminded me of the distance that had grown between us. It was as if the walls were closing in on me, and I was the only one who could feel the suffocating pressure of it all. I had tried so hard to keep it together, to pretend that everything was fine. I had smiled through family dinners, through outings, through holidays. I had done my best to hide the pain, the bitterness, the feeling of being pushed aside. But no matter how hard I tried to suppress it, the truth was always there, lurking just beneath the surface. David was no longer the boy I had raised. He had moved on, and I was nothing more than a spectator in his new life. I tried to be understanding. I really did. But it was getting harder to watch them together, to see how easily they had built a life without me. Sarah had always been kind, polite, but there was a coldness to her that I couldn't ignore. A coldness that made me feel like I was being replaced, not just as David's mother, but as a part of his world. It was a Wednesday evening when it all finally came to a head. I had been sitting in the living room, my thoughts spiralling, when I heard the sound of David and Sarah talking in the kitchen. They weren't fighting, not exactly. It was more like they were quietly discussing something, and I could hear Sarah's voice, soft and persuasive. "We really need to do this, David. We can't keep pretending everything's fine. Your mum doesn't get it. She's never going to let us go." I froze, the words stabbing at me like 1,000 knives. It wasn't the words themselves, but the tone, the quiet certainty with which she said them. I had heard it before, that sense of finality in her voice, as if she had already decided that I was the problem in their relationship. David's voice followed, but this time it wasn't the familiar warmth I was used to. "I know, Sarah," he said, his voice tired, almost defeated. "I've tried to talk to her. I've tried to make her understand, but she's not listening. She's holding on to me like I'm still a kid, like I'm still hers to control. I don't know what to do anymore." I felt a pang of something that almost felt like betrayal, but I swallowed it down. This was my son, and I could hear it in his voice. He was torn. He was caught between the love he had for me, the mother who had raised him, and the love he had for Sarah, the woman he had chosen to build his life with. I stood up slowly, my heart pounding in my chest, and I walked into the kitchen. They both looked up at me, their expressions mixed with surprise and something else I couldn't place. Guilt, maybe? Regret? But I wasn't here for apologies. "I heard everything," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "And I have to tell you, I can't just sit here and pretend like this doesn't matter. You've been making decisions without me for months now, David, and every time I try to speak up, it's like I don't exist. You've already made your choice. I see that now." David opened his mouth to respond, but I held up my hand to stop him. "No, don't," I said, my voice gaining strength. "I don't need you to apologize. I don't need you to make excuses. What I need is for you to understand that I can't be a part of this anymore. I can't be in a place where I'm nothing but an afterthought. The silence that followed was deafening. I could feel the weight of the words I had just spoken, and I could see the realization in David's eyes. He hadn't expected this. He hadn't expected me to finally voice what I had been feeling for months. He had been so wrapped up in his own world, in his own life with Sarah, that he hadn't realized how much I was suffering. I turned away from them, my hands trembling as I walked back to the living room. My heart ached as I sat down, the tears I had been holding back threatening to spill. I had tried, I really had, but now I had nothing left to give. I had lost him. It wasn't long before David came to me. I heard his footsteps approaching, and I could feel the tension in the air. He had always been the one who came to me when he needed advice, when he needed comfort. But now, it felt like he was a stranger in my own home and I didn't know how to fix it. "Mum," he said softly, sitting down next to me. His voice was filled with pain, and for the first time in weeks I saw the boy I had raised. The boy who needed me. The boy who had once been my whole world. "I'm sorry. I didn't realize how much this was hurting you. I should have been there for you, but I was too focused on Sarah. I thought I was doing the right thing." I turned to him, my heart breaking at the sight of his tears. "David," I whispered, "I'm not mad at you. I'm not angry. I'm just hurt. I've been a part of your life for so long, and now it feels like I'm losing you. I don't know how to be in this new world you've built without me. I don't know how to let go." David reached out, taking my hand in his. "Mom, you're never going to lose me. I love you. I always will. But I need you to understand that I can't keep living in the past. I can't keep trying to balance both of you, to make everyone happy. I need to make my own decisions, and I need to be with Sarah." I nodded, my heart breaking all over again. I knew this day was coming. I knew I couldn't keep holding on to him forever. But the pain of hearing the words out loud was more than I could bear. "I understand, David," I said quietly. "I'll always be here for you no matter what. But I can't keep pretending everything's okay. I need to let you go too. You're an adult now. You have your own life to live, and I have to respect that." David pulled me into a hug, and for the first time in months, I felt the warmth of his embrace. "Thank you, Mum. I promise I won't forget you. I'll always need you in my life." I held him tightly, the tears flowing freely now. I knew I had to let go, but it didn't make it any easier. The next few days were filled with quiet, painful conversations. David and Sarah continued their plans, and though I was no longer the centre of his life, I realised something important. I realised that letting go wasn't about losing him. It was about allowing him to grow, to live the life he had chosen. And in the end, I realised that my love for him would never fade. I didn't need to be the one who controlled everything. I didn't need to be the one who held the power. I just needed to be his mother, and that was enough. In the months that followed, things began to change. David and Sarah moved into their own place, and I learned to navigate this new chapter in my life. There were moments of sadness, moments when I missed him so much I could hardly breathe, but there were also moments of growth, moments when I realised that I had a life outside of being his mother. I began to find my own happiness again. I reconnected with old friends, took up new hobbies and started focusing on myself. It wasn't easy. Letting go of my son, of the life we had shared, was the hardest thing I had ever done. But as time passed, I learned that love doesn't always mean holding on. Sometimes love means letting go, and as I watched David and Sarah build their life together, I knew that I had done my job. I had raised a son who could stand on his own, who could make his own choices, and who loved me enough to let me go when the time was right. And in the end, that was the greatest gift I could give him.